All right, good morning, and today we are talking about MIDI in Pro Tools. This is a really fun one. I love teaching this lesson. It's one of my more fun lessons because I love making beats, I love making music, I like working with MIDI. Although I do try to work with audio as much as possible, I do love the convenience that MIDI affords us. So that's what we're talking about today in Pro Tools. I made a session here, and it's just called MIDI 2101 W12A1. That's for the class that we're talking with today. And this session is just a blank session, and it's at 24 bits and 44.1 kilohertz sample rate, and with interleaved. And it's just a blank session right now. There's not a whole lot going on here. As you can see across the top, I have bars and beats. I have tempo, meter, markers, that stuff there. And down the side over here, I've got my IO and track color. I'm going to actually show for now, I'm going to show my inserts as well, just so I can see what I've got on each track here. And over here, in this view, the mix window view, I'm also going to show my instruments. And we're going to be talking about the instruments quite a lot today. I'm just going to go ahead and open up my notes real quick here. So we have the notes. And the ones we're going to be talking about today are these two here, MIDI basics and event operations, all that stuff. So I'm just going to open those up, close that, do that, boom, and do this one. Awesome. Move that around a little bit, move this one over here, boop, 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 boop. There we go. All right, so now we have these two notes open so we can talk about these here. So the MIDI basics, and this is kind of MIDI basics in general. We're going to talk about this communication a little bit, but we're going to kind of come back to this because this is more about hardware than it is about software. And I really want to talk about Pro Tools here in the beginning more than I want to talk about just MIDI basics. And this stuff really, if you're just using Pro Tools or Ableton Live or Logic or something like that, and no external synthesizers, this stuff here isn't super important. So we're going to come back to this. That's a whole lot of stuff we're just going to chop out here right in the beginning. And we're going to start over here with the Pro Tools setup in here. So Pro Tools MIDI right here. Now this here is talking about how to get into the Pro Tools Studio. What are you scratching about there, baby? My dog is just scratching. We're going to get into the MIDI Studio. Now the MIDI Studio, we've talked about it before when we talked about the audio setup, and this is the audio MIDI setup in your Mac computer. The way to access it from Pro Tools is right up here under Setup MIDI Studio, and what this does is it actually opens up your audio MIDI setup. Now before I kind of get it from right there, we're gonna make a new, here I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna show you how to get to it from your applications folder. If I go into my applications folder on my computer, I go down to the bottom and it says utilities. Then in here, there is the audio MIDI setup. That's this right here, the audio MIDI setup. So that's where we wanna go. We wanna open this up here. I'm gonna open that up, and in the meantime, I'm just gonna go ahead and quit this numbers here. And in here, if you've been working with your audio devices, this is what's going to show up first, is the audio devices. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to Window, and I'm going to show my MIDI Studio. And if you want to, you can actually hide your audio devices here. And the MIDI Studio here, it's just going to show you whatever is connected to your computer, or also whatever has been connected to your computer in the past. So if we take a look at mine, the Arturia Minilab MK2 is what I've got connected right now. At school, I have connected up my Launch Key Mini. There's the IAC driver, which is the Inter-App C. Computer? I'm not really sure what that C stands for. But it's basically MIDI data that goes between your applications. And that's kind of like a internal MIDI routing thing. And so anything that's loaded up here, and if I had more stuff, like when you have an older computer and you've connected a whole bunch of stuff to it, you're going to see a whole bunch of devices. Anything that's grayed out means that it's not turned on or it's not accessible at this time. So right now we can see I've got my Arturia Minilab MK2 set up here. And if I had some external gear connected in, I would be able to connect it up right here like that. Oh, Jonathan, what is up? How you doing, man? Thanks for joining us. Let me just put your name in here. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. There we go. Awesome. Cool. All right, so once I've got that set up in my MIDI studio and I don't have anything connected up external, like, and when I say external, I mean like a keyboard that makes sound like a synthesizer or something like that. So I don't have anything like that connected up to my computer right now, and you're probably never gonna see anything like that with my studio here during class, especially as I'm traveling, because I'm just gonna be doing everything in my laptop and nothing really with external hardware, because it's just too big to take with me. So this stuff here is all well and good, and if I wanted to, like, I could double click on this thing and it would show me some items about it, you know, some details. I mean, there's nothing I really need to change on this. For the most part, you usually do not need to change anything about this stuff because the computer's just seeing this as an audio interface, and it's just something that's connected to the computer. The computer doesn't really know what it is. It knows that it's the Arturia Minilab MK2, but it doesn't know, is it a keyboard, is it whatever? It doesn't really need to know. It just says, okay, this is where my MIDI is going to come from. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and quit my MIDI studio here. And if you don't need to make any changes to your MIDI studio, or if you don't need to mess with anything, you don't have to open up your MIDI studio. It's not necessary that you open it up every time you run Pro Tools or anytime you're making a beat. I'm just showing it because if you do need to set things up, this is where you're going to go. All right, so I'm going to quit that. And we're going to go back into our notes. And over here, we're going to go into our MIDI preferences and just do a couple of kind of basic house cleaning things and just setting some stuff up. We're going to set it up so Pro Tools automatically creates a new click track whenever I'm starting a new session. That way you don't have to always create a click track if you're producing with Pro Tools and you're like, man, why is it that I always have to make a click track to get my metronome going? Well, you don't. I just haven't talked about this yet. And I'm also going to select a thing that says display events as modified by real-time properties. So we're going to go ahead and do those two things in Pro Tools here. So I just access that with setup preferences. Go over here to MIDI. And all the stuff we want to deal with is right over here on the left. So we're going to automatically create a click track when in new sessions. And we're going to display events as modified by real-time properties. And then also this default through instrument right here. Change that so it says follows first selected MIDI track. Now by default it says none. We don't want it to say none, we want it to say this one here. And if you do predefined, what that means is if you have something always connected up or a keyboard that's always connected, you always want to use that keyboard, then you can have it so it always uses that keyboard, but we're not going to utilize that right now. We always want it to follow the first selected MIDI track. What this means is that when you have a bunch of MIDI instruments in your session, whichever one you click on is going to be the one that you're playing. And this is really nice if you just want to quickly get some ideas out, then this really helps with that. All right, Roderick. What is up, Ricky? Now we have a full house. This is awesome. I love it. Sweet. I'm just going to put your name in the attendance here. You were the last one that we were waiting for. Sweet. There you go. Cool. All right, so that's what's going on here with this, the basics here. Over here in the MIDI stuff. All this other stuff, really, you don't need to mess with it. The defaults are good enough, so double-clicking a MIDI clip opens the MIDI editor. That's what you want it to do. Note display, standard is fine. Delay compensation for external devices. MIDI timecode, I would check MIDI beat clock as well, I guess. MIDI merge release mode is touch. That's fine. Yeah, and then use F11 key for wait for note. What this does is, it's the in Pro Tools, F12 is one of your shortcuts for recording. And if you want to use F11, what that'll do is it'll wait to start recording until you actually start playing notes on your keyboard. Some people like it, others don't. I am in the latter category. I'm not a huge fan of that feature, so I never really use it. All right, one other thing I'm going to do, and we've talked about this before, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it on right now. Over Elastic Audio. Yep, enable Elastic Audio on new tracks. Okay, good. I want that one to be there. And then, let's see here. Operation, I think. although maybe not. I think we're good automatically. Oh, here, I'm going to turn this one on to automatically create new playlists when loop recording. I like that feature. We didn't really talk about it yet. We will talk about it. Maybe we'll talk about it today a little bit just to kind of show you what it is. And then new tracks default to tick time base. Yeah. So when you're using Pro Tools to produce with, you want it to have new tracks default to tick time base. That way, whenever you bring in a new track, whenever you bring in some audio from somewhere else, it's always going to bring it in as a tick time base. And then with that last one we just did, this processing one, enable elastic audio on new tracks. That basically, those two things combined make it more like Ableton Live, where I can bring in loops and stuff and they will automatically follow my tempo. I don't have to keep worrying about, is it in elastic audio, is my ticks time base turned on? Anything I bring in, any kind of loop I bring in, I'm going to show you this today, anything I bring in is just automatically going to be in ticks time base, and it's going to follow my tempo if I change my tempos. That's really great. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a new track. I'm going to make an instrument track, and I want to kind of actually show you something that's interesting that's been happening. Is see this right here. I don't know what this is. This is like a glitch in my system. I can't get this to not be halfway. Look at that. It's just like halfway. So whatever. I'm just going to call this one drum. Let's see here. Drum kit. Let's call this 808 drum kit. There we go. And you can only see half of it for some reason. And so here it is. Here's my new track. And what I've got here is up top, I have this thing called instrument. And the reason why that's there is because down here, I checked the little thing that says instrument here. Now, you don't always need to have this. I'm just showing you this right now because I want to kind of point out some stuff with this. But you don't always have to have this. I usually don't turn it on unless I'm having some problem with something. I usually leave this off because, as you can see on my monitor here, I'm not using my big monitor right now. I'm using my laptop monitor. And the monitor on my laptop doesn't really have enough space to show everything. So if I go down here and I turn off instrument, now I can see everything a little bit better. I can see my comments. I can see my track here. It works out a little bit better. I'm actually going to change the color of my track by double clicking. I'm going to change it to blue. I'm not sure why my default is not blue. I guess at some point I changed my default to not be blue, which is annoying because I like the blue default. That's what I'm used to. But whatever. Or maybe it's like because I'm making instruments. Let's see. Let's make an audio track. Yeah, it's green. Okay, I don't know why. Maybe the instruments in Pro Tools, this new version of Pro Tools, are gray by default. Whatever. Anyway, so I've got my instrument here. And what I'm going to do, let me put the instrument thing back on top. There you go. What I'm going to do here is I am going to inserts A through E. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go to Instrument, Multi-Channel, Instrument, and I'm going to select Boom. Now, if you have installed all of your plugins that come with Pro Tools, then Boom is one of them. This is the drum machine, and it's like different types of instruments in here. It looks kind of like an 808 type of drum machine. Right now, the default drum kit is electro. I'm going to change that to 808, and we're going to change it to Fat 8. That's a nicer one. I like that one. It's a little bit beefier sounding. And in here, if I want to hear this, because I set up a couple things in Pro Tools, all I have to do is click the track. I'm going to turn that up so we can hear it a little bit better. All right, so I'm assuming you can hear that. If you can't hear it, let me know. Also, I'm going to go ahead and make a master fader here. Boom, so I've got my master fader. We're good to go with that. Excellent. And I can, if I want to actually turn up. There we go. Let's put that one back to 0. Cool. All right, so I've got that there. Now, couple things. When you're using instruments on here, I'm playing them on my MIDI keyboard. I don't have a camera set up on my MIDI keyboard. I will try to get one in the future when I'm set up wherever I am. This space that I'm in, I don't really have enough room to set this up very well. So I just don't have it set up here. But sometimes if I have enough space, I will set up a camera over my my keyboard here so you can see what I'm doing with my hands, but you're just gonna have to trust me on this. I'm just playing notes on my keyboard. What I do wanna show you though, is that what's really important here, let me just make sure that y'all can see what I'm doing here. There we go, here's my keyboard. What's really important here is that these octave keys right here. These are my octave keys, octave up and down here. And what you want to do is whenever you're playing drums, those drum sounds are going to change depending on which octave you are in right here. So if I move this one, if I push this button here so that light stops flashing, if I push these same keys, see, it's playing this different sound here. Right, so I got different sounds here. If I go octave down, right, now it's different sounds. That's because with drums, are basically, most drum machines are basically samplers. And what you're playing here is your samples that are assigned to different keys on your keyboard. So if you've got a drum machine up and you're playing the keys on your keyboard and you're not hearing anything, the first thing you should always check, well, the first thing is you should make sure that you're actually selected the right track, so you're playing the right sound. The second thing after that, if you are selected the right track and you've got it record enabled or whatever you do in your DAW, then the second thing you need to select is to make sure your octave is in the right range. Because if it's not, you're not going to be playing those notes. So I just want you to remember that. If you're ever playing your drum kit and you don't hear anything, you're like, Tony, what is going on? Before you even talk to me, check your octave keys. Octave down. Usually it's octave down. Octave down once or twice, and then keep pressing keys. Like hit octave once, press some keys, hit octave again, press some keys, and you're probably going to hear something at some point. And then just find the right keys. That is the % culprit when people are not hearing their drum sounds. It's because they're in the wrong octave on their controller. And I mean, like 90% of the time. I've even fallen into that hole before when I first started off doing stuff. I'm like, where's my drum sounds? Oh, okay, I have to use my octave keys. So don't fall for it. It's a trick. It's a trap. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the decay down on this one too. I don't love that. Cool. Let's turn that. Cool. All right, so we got this here. I'm going to go ahead and close that instrument. I'm going to go ahead and put this up, and let's put a create click track. Awesome. Now, you can hear my tempo here. The first thing before I start doing any kind of MIDI stuff is I always check my tempo. What am I playing? What am I trying to do with this? And what I want to do, I'm going to make a beat that's like this. It's just what's in my head right now, right? So that tempo is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. So I need my tempo here to match that tempo pretty closely. I can do that by double clicking this and changing that down to around like 95. Let's hit play. That's right tempo. Great, okay. And how do I know that? I know that because I've done tempo stuff millions and millions of times, and after a while you just get used to it. But if I didn't know that, what could I do? Well, one thing I could do is I can go to my window and open up my transport. And in here, we can see, here's this here, and I can actually drag this and move it up and down. Now, I think I was talking to somebody the other day about this transport. I think it may have been you, Monique. I think it was you. In here, and I mentioned to turn this off. You don't actually have to turn that off anymore. I'm sorry, that was like an old school Pro Tools thing. I forgot. You can actually just type it in here. They did change it at some point and make it a little bit easier on us. So I can change my tempo right there. I can change it over here. So now, if I adjust the tempo here, if I move this, I can actually adjust that tempo in real time, and I can just use my arrow keys and just kind of let it go to 3, 4, boom, boom, cat, boom, boom, cat, boom, cat, boom, cat, boom, boom, cat. That's a little bit, that's good right there. I like that tempo right there. So I don't need to have this open. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. And I'm going to zoom in here like this. And I'm going to go ahead and set up a loop. I'm just going to drag across the top here. So I've got a loop, And up here, I've got my play loop turned on. You could also turn on your loop record, but for MIDI, and this is a weird thing with Pro Tools, for MIDI, if you want to record in a loop with MIDI, you actually don't want to have loop record turned on. It's a weird thing. I know it's weird. It doesn't make any sense, but that's kind of how it is. I'm also going to turn this off so when I click around in here, it's not going to change my loop points. What I did was I just turned this one off right here, link timeline and edit selection, because if I have it turned on, watch this. Whenever I move my cursor, see how my little arrows are following it around? If I highlight here, it's going to loop that 2-bar section. If I highlight 4 bars, it's going to loop that 4-bar section right there. If I move here, it's going to move around. So I don't want it to do that. What I want to do is I want to set up my loop and then stop it from adjusting where my playhead is. So I'm going to turn that off. And now anywhere I click, see up top, it didn't change my loop points up here. It just changes where my insert point is. So that's what we're going to have right there. And I'm going to go ahead and let's record. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit the 3 key for recording. Oh, no tracks are record enabled. Ha 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 ha. Just kidding. Okay, let's do that. And I'm going to hit record, and there we go. And I'm just going to go. Cool. All right. So now it just went around here, and I got enough here to mess with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clean this up first. Before I even hit play on it, I'm going to clean it up. The way you clean this up is I'm going to go to Event Operations, and go to Quantize. And in here with my quantize, I'm just going to say, what do I want to quantize it to? I want to quantize this to the 16th note. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about this in just a moment, but why do I want to quantize it to the 16th note? Because I was playing 16th notes. I wasn't playing straight 16th notes. I wasn't going da 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 like that, but I was going bop 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 bop. And those are 16th notes. How do I know that? Because I started playing piano when I was 4 years old, so I just know it. How do you know it? You got to practice. That's the only way to really know this type of stuff. The more you make beats, the more you will learn this, though. It wasn't like I became better at understanding rhythms and stuff, definitely, especially within Pro Tools, after I started just making beats all the time. Remember, I've been making music with Pro Tools since, with Pro Tools since 1999. I've been making music with computers since 1992, 1 or 2, something like that. It's been a long time. And so this doesn't happen overnight. It's going to be a little bit frustrating and slow at first, but you just got to keep doing it and you'll be fine. All right, so I'm going to hit apply. And there we go. You saw how that moved over. Let me hit undo here. I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to hit my apply key. Watch this space right here. Watch these notes. Watch what happens when I hit apply. Boop. See how they all moved over? Okay. Well, that's because I just applied my quantization to it. Actually, let's listen to this without the quantizing first. I'm going to zoom in on here. I'm going to make this a bit bigger. And I'm going to change my grid to 16th notes so we can just kind of see what's going on here. All right, so here, let's go ahead and play. Hear how I'm like super on top of it? Now, I don't know if I'm on top of it because of like there's latency going on or whatever. I am going through loopback. I'm going through an external piece of gear. So I have a feeling there's like quite a lot of latency happening. I'm going to go ahead and hit apply and it will move it over for me. Now listen to it. All right, and you hear how everything was pretty good until I got over here, and I could have told you this part was going to be bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of that using my normal editing tools that we already talked about. I'm not going to talk about them again because we discussed them, and if you want to learn about them, go watch that video about them. But it all applies to MIDI and audio and everything. So I've got this one here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my Option or Alt key on a Windows, and I'm going to copy it over, and now let's check it out. Awesome. Now, if I want to take these two clips and put them together, actually, they're missing some information here because I turned it off for doing a screenshot before. So I'm going to go to View, clip views, I'm going to turn on my clip gain line, and I'm also going to turn on my name. There we go. Okay, cool. So the clip gain line is not going to show up until we have audio clips, but I just want to have it on. So in here, now what I'm going to do is I want to join these two clips together. We do that the same way with MIDI as we do with audio. I'm just going to shift click them and Option Shift 3, and it turns them into one new clip. Now, all my clips that I had before, let's see here. Show auto created. There we go. Let's show all that created. Okay, so all my clips that I had before will show up as well, and my new clips are going to show up here also. I don't need to have that open. I just wanted to show you that. So in here, now if we see this, now check this out. If I want to edit this MIDI data that's in here, I have a couple of ways to do this. The easiest way, I think, is to double click it, and it opens up my MIDI editor. And this just shows me a piano roll on the side to show me which notes I played, and it just has a grid going across to show me where I played them. And each note has a certain amount of length to it. So if I wanted this note to be longer or shorter, I can just adjust that. Now, with drums, we're not going to hear any difference, because a drum doesn't matter if I hold it down or if I hit it and let go. It's just a drum sound. It's just going to play a drum sound. It doesn't matter if I hold it a long time or a short time. So the length of these right now doesn't matter. It's not going to matter until we get to some other keyboard sounds, which we're going to do fairly soon. Now in here, if I wanted to play the sounds, I can play them. And you can kind of hear those. It might be a little bit soft for you, but I can play them like this. And if I want to change the sounds a little bit, let me go over here to my boom sound here, and that's really soft. It's really soft because this level is way down here. There we go. There we go, cool. So we have that. Now, if I wanted to record over this, let me record a hand clap sound on top of it. What I want to make sure is if I open up my transport, that's under Window, Transport right here, or it's Command number key 1, or Control number key 1. I want to make sure this button right here is on. This is my MIDI merge button. We want to make sure that's on. When that's on, what happens is anything that I have, a clip that I have there already, it's going to write into that clip. It's not going to overwrite it, it's going to write into it. Let me just show you a couple of differences here. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. So now I have Kit and Kit 01. And with Kit 01, I'm going to turn off my MIDI merge. I'm going to hit record and watch what happens. Whoops, make sure I record enable the track. There you go. And now you can see it's erasing everything that was there before. That is because my MIDI merge is turned off. Now I'm going to turn my MIDI merge on. I'm going to go back to my original track here. It's got my other stuff on it. I'm going to hit play on it, and I can record my clap in on top of the drums that are there. See how that works? And it's highlighted. It's still going, so I can add a hi-hat on top of this. Cool, and you can hear everything's pretty dirty. So I'm going to turn off my record by hitting my 3 key again. I'm going to turn off my click as well, because I don't want to hear that anymore. Now everything is kind of sloppy, so I'm just going to hold down Option and 0. It pulls up my quantize, and I'm going to hit apply, and it locks it in for me. Pretty cool. Now if I want to record anything else, I just find it on my keyboard. Hit that apply button on my quantize. Yeah, Gray. Actually, I did too. I kind of liked how the snare was flammed. Yeah, actually, let's go back to that here for a second. So if I've done a bunch of stuff, oh, nice, okay, cool, yeah, kind of Pharrell-ish, yep. So if I have a bunch of stuff here, I can hit Command Z to kind of go back to how it was. Wait, let's go one more time. And if I wanted to just correct my hi-hats, what I can do is I can double click it and just go in here and select the note that has the hi-hats on it and just quantize that. Right, and so it's pretty good, but it's a little bit too sloppy for me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select my claps and I'm gonna go down here and check this out. Go to strength and turn this down to like 50%. And now hit apply. And now the more I hit it, every time I hit it, it's gonna bring it 50% of the way there. So I'm gonna hit it a couple times. Now, that was one too many times. There we go. Right, and that's better sounding. It's not 100% perfect with that, the clap and the snare are not 100% perfect. So that's what I usually do. I usually don't set my strength to 100. I usually set my strength to like 50% or something like that. Now let's go ahead and put that back in. I'm gonna hit the record button here. Right, and I can highlight that one, and I'm just gonna hit apply a couple times. There we go. Cool, and that sounds pretty good. And this is how we can add stuff in. Now, if I don't want to have to always hit that quantize button after I do a take, if I wanted to always quantize it like on the fly, then what I can do is I can go over here. When I've got my event operations window open, this is like its own little window that you can float around your screen. It has all this stuff in it. We're going to talk about this stuff. But for now, let's talk about the input quantize right here. This is going to quantize things on the fly as you play it. So I'm going to turn this on to enable input quantize, and let's set the strength on this one to like, I don't know, like 70% or something like that. So it's not locking it in 100%. So as you say, Gray, it keeps it sounding more organic. That's what we want it to do. So we're going to set that to like 70% right there. It's going to quantize everything that comes in. Now, once again, how do we know what to quantize to? Well, the general rule of thumb that I go by is I use 16th note if I'm under 130 BPM. If you're doing trap, if you're doing like kicks and snares and instruments in trap music and you're recording at like 150 or 160, then I would set my quantize to 8th notes. So for stuff that's fast, that's over 130 BPMs, it's faster than that, I would set my quantize grid to 8th notes. For anything that's under 130, I would set it to 16th notes. Now, the exception is if you are recording in rolls for trap, like the hi-hat type of stuff, you do not want to set your quantized grid to 8th. You want to turn it off basically, because those rolls are basically like 64th notes or 32nd notes. And I'm going to show you a couple of those here in just a second, how to put those in using the grid in here to pencil them in. But in general, if you're not doing those rolls, if you're doing everything else, then 8th notes or 16th notes usually work out. I encourage you to experiment with different grid settings to kind of explore those. That's how I know this type of stuff is just A, from just having lots of music theory growing up, and then B, from just doing this forever and ever and ever and making lots of beats. That's how you learn about this stuff. All right, so let's just show how that works. I'm going to go ahead and recreate this beat now, and I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of it. Actually, well, let's see here. Where are you going, dog? You gonna go back over there? It's fine, but you just can't go through the cables. All right, instead of doing that, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new one here, 02. There we go. So it's a blank one. So I have the original one there if I want. And this is one of the things I love about Pro Tools. It's different from Ableton Logic, and I think it's even different from Ableton Live 11, is that with Pro Tools, you can make a blank playlist just to kind of have a scratch pad. So if I'm working with a drum kit and I'm just like, you know what, I'm not in love with that, I'm gonna put the keyboard right in front of me. I'm not in love with that drum beat, or I'm not in love with that keyboard line, or whatever it is, I want to try a different one. Well, then you can easily do that by just kind of making a new blank playlist and try something else, but you've still got your other idea there. In Ableton Live, the way to do that is using different clips in your session view, which we will talk about. But on the track itself, there's not really a way to do it, even though they did add in playlists. It's more like how Logic does it. It's more for comping than it is for ideas. But Ableton Live already has that feature built into the clips, so it's not a big deal. And I think Logic has it now because they've got that clips thing as well, right? They're just totally biting Ableton's style. Yeah, I said it. What? All right. So we're going to go in here, and I'm just going to do a little recording here. I've got my input quantize turned on, and I'm just going to make a little recording about this. And let's see. Oops. Let's turn on the pre-roll so I have 1 bar of pre-roll here. 1, 0, 0, good, okay. So it's just gonna do it 1 bar of pre-roll. I don't usually use a pre-roll unless I'm at the beginning of everything here. So I'm just gonna leave that up, and I'm gonna hit record. It didn't do a pre-roll. Why did you not? You didn't pre-roll at all. Oh, count off, that's what I wanted, not pre-roll. Here we go, there we go, okay. And let's set up my loop. And my click is muted. There we go. There we go. Okay. I'm going to start with my hi-hat. Cool. So you can see it went ahead and did that. Now I got a little weird note in here, which I'm going to, that note's like, I'm going to have fun too. Get rid of you. There we go. I'm just going to put that note back in. There we go. Close enough. It captured it. All right, so I'm going to go back to clips. Cool. And now I'm going to go ahead and put in my kick and my snare. All right, we're going to make basically the same one I just made. Here, that one's weird. And if I want to go ahead and change it, this one here, just going to drag it over like that. There we go. And you can see I'm doing changes right in here, which is something you can't really do. Now, if I want to find my other notes, I'm going to turn my record off real quick, find it. And I'm going to go ahead and play it in. And let's just find one more sound. Awesome. And I just turned my record on real quick and then turned it back off again. Great, let's turn this off. What's up, Smashville? Okay, cool. So we have this there, and it's sounding pretty good. So you can see what I'm doing here is I'm actually going back and forth between my clips and my notes, And we can see, and this is something that's really cool about Pro Tools that I actually really like a lot, is that you can do all your editing in one window right here. I don't have to move around. And this becomes really useful, especially when we're bringing in audio and we're working with audio and MIDI and all that stuff. I can just have everything right here on one screen, so it's easy to line stuff up. And as far as I know, Pro Tools is the only one that does this. The other apps, you always have to open up a separate window for your MIDI clips. It's always like on the side or on the bottom or on top or whatever. It's in a different place. With Pro Tools, if I want to, I can edit my notes right here on the screen. If you want those notes to be zoomed in on, you can just zoom them in right up here up top on the left right there. And now I can zoom in on my notes and drag them around. So now I've got all my MIDI notes right there on my screen in front of me, and I can see what they're doing, which is pretty cool, I think. Cool. All right. Now let's go ahead and make a bass line. There we go, and we'll call it bass. And for the bass, not that, those capital letters always get me. I'm just like, so like, it's got to be correct. I don't know if anybody else is like that, but I am definitely like that. Okay, we're going to go in here and we are going to use Vacuum. Vacuum is cool. It comes with Pro Tools. It's one of my favorite synths, actually. It's like, I like Vacuum so much, I've actually considered buying it. They sell it separately as a separate VST plugin, and I've always thought like, I should just get that. But then I don't. I'm not sure why. All right, so I've got my Vacuum in here, and if I click on it, now I can play my bass sound. Let's go octave down. Awesome. Sounds good. Let's move stuff around. Sorry, put my phone over there. Put this back there. I'm going to put this keyboard right in front of me, I think. Let's see. This, as I mentioned a minute ago, this desk is no, that's not going to work. This desk is painfully small, this little area right here, so I don't have a good space to put things like on the side or over here. It's just like a very small space. It's definitely not my normal studio environment. So I'm going to scoot back a little bit. Can you still hear me? I'm so far away. Hi. All right, and pull this up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and just find a preset for this bass here. The presets are just in here somewhere. Do not come onto my lap, dog. You stay over there. Sorry, baby. Lap is off limits right now because there's a keyboard on it. I'm just going to go here to my... Ooh, nice. What's my drum? I don't even remember what my drum beat is. All right, we're gonna. I have to retune things a little bit. Nope, sorry. Lap is occupied. Can't come over here. I'm sorry, baby. Oh, my dog is looking so sad. Alright, so as I'm going, what I'll do is, and this is what I often do, is I'll kind of get some ideas. The kick drum is not in tune with this bass sound at all, but I'm just going to go ahead and play something in here. I'm going to turn my record on, and then record. And then what I can do is I can go over here to this bass drum and tune it. Cool. Much better. And probably with this kick drum, we're going to do some tweaking to this. But if I've got a deep bass in here like this, I don't need it to be this like super, super long. There we go. Cool. All right, and then the other thing I may want to do is I may want to actually line up these instruments together a little bit. So, for example, and this is where this comes in really handy. And there's a couple of ways I can actually do this. I'm just going to show you both ways. I can go in here and I can say, you know what I want? I want this bass to follow this kick drum a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this one here like this and move this here, that over there. Yep. And then like that. And then pull this one over again as well. And I'm lining this one up with this one right here. See these two? This one and this one are being lined up here. And that's going to help them kind of punch. Oops, that's going to help them kind of punch a little bit harder. Your kick drum and your bass drum lining up together are going to help accentuate each other. Now, you don't have to do this, but if you pay attention to trap music, if you pay attention to rock music, if you pay attention to funk, if you pay attention to jazz, a lot of times the kick drum and the bass kind of follow each other. And this is a secret that I learned, that crackling noises. I don't know. Let me know if anybody else hears the crackling noises. But basically, you want to have these things kind of following each other. It's going to help them kind of accentuate each other. All right. Lots of crackles? Really? My mic. Is my mic crackling? No. Why didn't somebody say something? Hey, check. Is that better? Hello, hello? Hold on. Hey. Hold on. I'm going to stop this recording here.